Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Moyer, author of Win Again, speaker, career coach, and business advisor. And I help athletes, executives, and entrepreneurs reach their fullest potential. What you're going to be hearing in every single episode are conversations with athletes and other sports-related influencers. And we'll be offering you the insight that you need to succeed in life, including advice that will let you jump past your competition, whether it be for a great new job or taking your business to a much, much higher level. Make sure to connect with me on social media at Mark Moyer Coach and go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to the tips and strategies that my coaching clients get directly. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email to mark@markmoyer.com and I'll get you going right away. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be an awesome episode. Now, are you ready to make your mark? Let's do this. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer, and I'm broadcasting to you live from New York City. And I'm super thrilled to have you on board wherever you're listening. If it's here in New York, somewhere else in the United States, or anywhere else on this great planet of ours, thanks for being here. And I'm super excited. I just had a chance to speak to Anthony Gair. And what's really great about Anthony is at 24 years old, he's already accomplished so much. He was a star football player at the University of Iowa, and he really did the student athlete thing right. He studied hard. He performed at his sport really well, but he also was an entrepreneur, and he launched 2 separate businesses, which I think you're going to find really impressive to hear about. And he's got great advice for all entrepreneurs, including how to meet Daymond John. Anyway, make sure you listen to the episode, but before you do so, click subscribe, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening. And go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to all the prior episodes. They're all great. These guests are amazing. They all have superb stories to tell. Without further delay, jump into this episode. You're going to love hearing Anthony Gair's story on the Make Your Mark podcast. Happy listening. Hey everyone, welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer, and I'm super thrilled to have Anthony Gair on with me today. And Anthony is down in the state of Texas. And you know what they say about everything in Texas? Everything is one giant piece bigger or something or other. I don't know. But he'll tell you all about that. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And for those of you out there that have been listening to these podcasts, and it's titled Make Your Mark for a reason. And I like to focus on people that are in the athletic space that are either former or current athletes that are making an impact going forward, and they've got some sort of significant things that they're doing that I feel are making a great impact. And Anthony certainly falls into that because, Anthony, you're doing a whole bunch of things now, and you've only been out of school a couple of years. So we're going to talk about your story a little bit, and that story always starts with when you were a small Anthony, right? So tell me a little bit about where you were born and raised, and sort of walk me through a little bit at school, and then what got you started in football?
Sure, yeah. So I was born and raised in New Orleans and started playing football at the age of 5. So I was super young playing contact football and really got involved just because, it was popular, right? Everybody wanted to play sports. I was playing on the street with my friends and et cetera. So I wanted to kind of get involved with the park league. And so, like I said, I got involved at a very young age and stuck through it, obviously. And then in 2005, when Hurricane Katrina hit, my family and I, packed a small bag, got in the car, and we drove down to Dallas. And so there's when I started to really hone in on my craft, my skills with my athletic abilities in football, and then was fortunate to obviously get a scholarship to the University of Iowa to continue my football career. So let's take a step back to Katrina itself. Were you guys able to get out before it hit or after? What happened during that time? I mean, I'm sure that was not easy for a kid your age, much less the rest of your family. Right. Yeah. So we actually left the day before.
Okay.
And so there was been times previously where the news will say, hey, there's a hurricane coming. So my family and I always like to take precaution and just leave just in case. And so luckily we did leave, a day before it hit, and we just didn't turn back. So yeah, we were safe.
Were you able to, did your family ever go back or anything? Or did you just kind of say, see ya, New Orleans, or what happened?
Yeah, so we went back once everything was cleared up, just to obviously see the house. It was a bunch of damage done.
Wow.
We couldn't really salvage any items at that point. Lost a bunch of pictures, etc. But I'm very optimistic about the situation. Right, if that wouldn't have happened, obviously I wouldn't be here today speaking with you. So I think everything falls in place for a reason. So
Well, and that's what people always say, right? It's when things happen, you don't see that necessarily, and it's traumatic. But then, I think what makes someone like you resilient and strong is that you're able to adapt to new situations as they happen. So I think that was a great. Looking back, it probably wasn't a great moment in your life, but it was probably led to great things. So
sure, yeah,
that's interesting. So now you're in Dallas, and unfortunately for you, you're stuck liking the Cowboys.
No way, no, I'm still a Saints fan.
Oh, all right, good. Phew.
Yeah.
Glad you didn't get sucked into that vortex, the Jerry Jones vortex.
Exactly.
Jerry, if you're listening, I love you, baby. Anyway, just kidding, I don't love you. Anyway, so now you're growing up in Dallas and you start getting involved with, was football your only sport, or did you jump into other sports? What happened?
Sure. So when I was in New Orleans, I played football, baseball, track, basketball. I did it all. And so once I got a little older, I kind of wanted to hone down on a few those sports and kind of focus on just, 2 or 3. So once I got to high school, it was just mainly football and track. And then I was fortunate to do really well in track as well. So I think that kind of helped me out on the football field as well.
What were you doing in track?
So I did the 400, I did the 4x1, and then also the 4x4.
Wow. So that's more the distance than it is the sprinting.
Yeah, sure.
And so that was the baton pass, right?
Right. Yeah. So on the 4x1 and the 4x4, you pass the baton. But the 400 meter.
I know that. I can't believe I actually asked you that question, because I know that. But one of the things I always wondered is when I watch, honestly, I don't watch a lot of track unless it's the Olympics. But when I'm watching the Olympics, and all I think about is that all these guys and these women have trained for 4 solid years. They've every minute of every day, they've bled for this thing, everything. And then I'll watch one 4x4 team. Inevitably, someone drops the baton.
Yeah.
And I'm like, crushing that they've got to live for the next 4, until the next, whatever it is.
Right.
With that. Oh my God. So is that something you practiced a lot, or not really, or what happens?
Yeah, it is. You practice that continuously, throughout the year. Obviously in high school, we didn't have to wait 4 years until the next beat, right? So it's like, it's just a natural thing. But people make mistakes. I fortunately didn't ever drop the baton or any of my teammates, so I didn't have to worry about that.
Well, of course. Well, and that falls into the whole football thing too, maybe. I don't know. So you started, you're playing football in Dallas in high school and so forth. At what point did you feel like, wait a minute, you know what? I might be pretty good at this. Not just playing on the team, but I might be able to take it to the next step and playing football.
I think.
In college. Sorry.
Yeah. I think after the summer before my sophomore year. So I attended a bunch of camps. I went to OU, went to LSU, did some camps. And I felt as if I was able to keep up with, everybody else. Right. And so after my sophomore season, no injuries. I had a pretty good season, put up some really good numbers, attended more camps. And that's when I was like, okay, maybe I can go to the next level, get a scholarship, et cetera. So I think around that time frame was when I kind of felt as if I would move on.
So what was your process of trying to figure out where to go to college? What'd you do?
Yeah. So I was fortunate to have, a good amount of offers around the nation. I had a mentor. Obviously, my mom played a huge role in regards to trying to figure out what was the best school.
Right.
So when I went on my visit, right, it was important for me to, talk to the coaches. I wanted to make sure the coaching staff had been there for a while. I wanted to make sure that I was a part of a winning organization. I wanted to make sure that, the chemistry was there with the players, et cetera. And all of those things aligned with the University of Iowa, which is why I chose to go there.
Now, I'm assuming you visited the campus and so forth, but Iowa's kind of flat, right?
Right.
And so probably not a lot of skiing and other stuff that goes on there, but tell me a little bit about going to school there. What was it like? What was the college experience like for you?
It was good. Academics were good. Everybody was involved. We had academic counselors. Obviously, the coaches were involved, and I really liked the community, right? The atmosphere was all about the University of Iowa because there was no professional team there, right? So I thought that was a plus as well in my decision to go there because everything's about the Hawkeyes. The fans, they love you, they support you in all of your decisions, et cetera. So it was definitely an overall good experience, and I was able to experience more than just football. Obviously, the entrepreneurial aspect of that as well. So
that's perfect segue right there. In my experience at where I went to Colgate University in near Syracuse, a small little liberal. You know that word, liberal arts. There we go. School. Oh my God, I got marbles in my mouth. Anyway, and I can safely say that the school itself, like in my experience, there were so many things that were available to do, but I was young and immature, and I didn't really take advantage of a lot of stuff. And now I'll go back to campus and speak as an alum, and I'm like, wow, check out this music center. They have these beautiful pianos here that I couldn't believe I didn't, I used to be in a band when I was in college. I can't believe we never rehearsed in these spaces. We were always rehearsing in someone's dingy basement.
Right.
And, all this stuff, right? But here, what impressed me about you, Anthony, is that you clearly, you started getting involved on the entrepreneurial side on top of all the football. But what got you started in the first place with that?
That's a good question. I think, back to my mentor, my high school mentor, he was involved in a lot of business. I saw that he was pretty successful. So that just kind of made me more interested. I wanted to learn more. I was very, very curious to know, how he got to where he got to. And so my sophomore year of college, there was one other guy on my team that was involved in the entrepreneurial community. So I asked him about it, told him about my idea, got involved in some classes. And then from there, it just kind of took off. And a lot of people supported me, understanding that I was an athlete and I was trying to do the entrepreneurial thing as well. So yeah, it was definitely a good learning experience for me. I learned a lot, made a ton of friends, a ton of mentors, et cetera. So, and then I think in the end, I wanted to be as marketable as possible, right? So I just didn't want to be an athlete, but I wanted to be an athlete, wanted to be involved in entrepreneurship and a fraternity and all this other stuff. So that, again, it shows that I can be a very marketable person. So.
Wait a minute. So you were in a fraternity also. All right. So which one? Which house?
Omega Psi Phi.
Got it. Was your experience the same or different than pretty much what people think of fraternities?
Probably different. There weren't, I guess, many individuals on my campus in my fraternity, so it wasn't like 1,000 of us, right? So, but my goal in being involved in the fraternity is to, build a brotherhood, right? So like some of my line brothers, Sean Draper, he's overseas playing football, and then Desmond King, who plays for the Chargers. So those are two of my best friends. And, it's just, again, all about the brotherhood and the bonding, et cetera. So definitely a good experience though. So.
Well, and I'm glad you said that. I was in a fraternity at Colgate, Phi Delta Theta, and at the time, there was a lot of the drinking and a lot of the goofing around and so forth. But I also thought that it was really such a great experience to form those bonds. And, to this day, I'm still, I shouldn't say how many years later, but like 30 something years later. I was in college when I was 6 years old, obviously. But anyway, but I think sometimes people that aren't in the Greek system, they look upon it as just a bunch of people goofing around and getting drunk all the time and all that sort of thing. And what they don't realize is that it's such a magnificent way to really learn to become, or really sort of grow a network and really start on your path down, whether it's entrepreneurship or getting a job, whatever it might be. Sure. So, but I'm glad to hear you still, obviously you're still connected with a lot of these guys. Yep. And so you start doing the entrepreneurial thing also, but it's funny when people consider what it's like to be a student athlete, it's hard to do. Like there's really three major things, right? There's your sport, there's academics, and then there's your social life, your college life, right? Yeah. And it's really hard to do all three at once successfully, right? So sometimes you kind of got to pick two, whether it's sports and academics, or if it's academics and your social life, whatever it is. Sure. So but then on top of that, you're adding this whole entrepreneurial stuff too. How did you, did you sleep at all, or what'd you do? What'd you do?
Yeah. So I think for me, it was really important to have a schedule and stick to the schedule, right? Like have a plan, stick to it, and map out the days accordingly. So I think the football thing was, it was already set in stone. We kind of knew what the week was going to look like.
Right.
So I was able to kind of, adjust and make plans around that. Obviously, my school schedule was already set in stone as well. So if I had an hour here or 2 hours here or a day off here, I would be able to utilize some of the other stuff. So.
That's good. So you did have a little bit of a social life anyway?
Oh yeah, most definitely I did. Yeah.
Right, good. That's great. So anyway, you're going through Iowa State and you're
University of Iowa, not Iowa State.
I knew. I was waiting for you to correct me. Nice. Well done. By the way, why do they call it the Ohio State University?
I'm not sure.
Whenever I see that, I'm like, why is it the Ohio State? Like, there are other Ohio State universities that we don't know about, and this one's the, I don't know.
Yeah, we have to emphasize this one here.
Anyway, sorry, backtracking. So you're starting to do this entrepreneurial stuff. Tell me, what was the first, I know you had some really cool experiences while you're in school.
Yeah.
Tell me about your interaction with Daymond John. He came to campus, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that.
Yeah, so there were, I think, about 40 or 45 different, businesses that the University of Iowa could have chosen from. And so I was one of the 3, right? And so it was just a good opportunity to present not only in front of Daymond John, but some other, really successful entrepreneurs and in a crowd of almost, 1,500 to 2,000 people, right? And so just hearing his story, getting feedback from him, and then also getting, 5 to 10 minutes of his time after the event was really fantastic. So,
and so this when you were sort of presenting to him, which one? Well, time out. Which was the puzzle greetings, or what were you presenting to him?
No, it was track slides.
Oh, it was track slides.
Yeah.
So what kind of advice did he give you specifically about getting that business going and running with it?
Sure. So he thought it was a great idea. In fact, I think there was a similar idea that had actually came on to Shark Tank that they almost did a deal with. So I reached out to the individual who had the similar idea. We talked about it. We thought about collaborating, but it just didn't work out. So yeah, that was that. And again, he thought it was a great idea though. So
that's awesome. And when you did he give any, did he say to you, let's catch up again down the road, or was kind of like, all right, good luck, go get him kind of a thing?
Yeah, he wasn't really there to, invest or partner with anyone. It was just more so give feedback. We won some prize money at the end, and that was really.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool. Yeah. And do you think at some point in the future you'd be able to chase him down, or?
Actually, about a year ago, I actually ran into him at the airport.
Oh, really?
So,
wow.
Yeah, really cool.
Did he remember it all or not?
He did. Yeah, he did. He has so many different pictures, but once I said the University of Iowa, track slides, and gave her the whole rundown, he was able to remember stuff.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. Because look, I really like him a lot. I'm really impressed with, not only everything he's accomplished and done, but he just seems like a genuinely nice guy, and he's smart. He really knows his stuff. He really knows his craft, So
sure.
What a great sort of a guy to get to know and a potential mentor. So anyway, now jumping forward a little bit, you've done this track slides thing, and you've got puzzle greetings, but why don't we take a step back? Talk about track slides a little bit. I'd love to hear more about, number one, what made you come up with this idea? And then number two, walk me through the process. One day did you wake up and go track slides, or no? So how'd that work?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I ran track in high school, right? Yeah. So, myself, along with teammates and competitors, we all had the same issues of getting from one point to another. Yeah. Having to, walk on our heels, constantly change our shoes, etc.
Right.
I think it was my junior or senior year, I actually spiked myself trying to rush and take off my spikes because, again, you have to take them off to walk on the concrete, right? So I thought it would be a great opportunity once I got to college, my sophomore year, when I kind of started to get involved with that, to present this idea of hey, we need to come up with a solution to cover the spikes, right? And so one of my mentors at the University of Iowa actually ran track at Colorado, I believe it was. He's like, wow, that's a great idea. I ran track. I know exactly what you're talking about. So, we sat down, we talked through it. We met with the art, I think it was the art department or something like that. I was partnered with a design student, and we started drawing. And so it was a very, long process, but I learned a lot throughout the entire process. I had to meet with lawyers to try to get a patent and all this other stuff. So yeah, it was definitely, a good learning experience, and I learned a lot throughout the entire process.
Well, that's cool. So you design it. Did you, at what point did you create the first prototype, I guess?
So that took a while because we had to kind of nail down on the design that we wanted to look like, et cetera. So probably about 5 to 7 months. Obviously, we can't work on it every single day because everybody has different schedules, et cetera. Right. So once we kind of got the design down, we were able to do some prototypes, et cetera, 3D printed prototypes that were made out of plastic. And obviously the first time wasn't always right. So we had to print multiple of those to get exactly how we wanted it. So
when you created did you, what made you say, well, okay, now I've got this thing created, I've got this track slide, and then you got the patent on it. How was that challenging, that whole process of getting it patented?
Oh my goodness, yes. So at first I had to do a provisional patent, right?
Okay.
So and that protects me for a year so that I can continue to validate. So I talked to not only the athletes but the coaches and parents, et cetera, before I move forward to get the utility patent. So I would say that process was probably about 1.5 to 2 years.
Wow. And so what is that? So now that you've got it patented, what's the patent cover specifically for your design for the slide?
Sure. So this is just the concept of actually covering a spike from the front end to the back end of the track spike.
So does that mean, because I'll be a little ignorant about this, does that mean nobody else can actually come up with anything that covers spikes front to back?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I couldn't give you the answer to that. But I think if someone wanted to change something slightly, I'm sure there's ways around it.
Okay.
I thought it would be beneficial to obviously try to protect what I had. Right. And then I also go through the process of like, hey, I designed this, we got it prototyped, we took it to some lawyers, we got it drafted up, we got it approved, we got the patent, the whole nine. So
is that something, I'm sure that wasn't cheap to look. Anytime you say I went to a lawyer, it's like ka-ching right off the bat. It's like, but were these guys, because it was while you were in school, was it somehow covered by the school, or were you able to get some sort of a discount or something, or how'd that work?
Yeah, so I think the lawyers that I had worked with, they were tied to the University of Iowa, so there was a little bit of a discount there, but there was multiple pitch competitions that I had done throughout my journey at the University of Iowa. So I won some money there that I could put towards the patent and the lawyer fees, et cetera. So that helped a lot.
Well, that's good. Now, so now you've got this product, and so what did you want to, what was the idea behind what you wanted to do? And we'll talk about, and we'll walk through this a little bit. We've spoken about this in the past, but what next do you think you'd like to do with track slides, if anything? And we'll talk about that. So.
Yeah. So I think ideally, right, it's to try to license it out to a bigger shoe manufacturing company, or to partner with someone, or to just sell the IP, right? Is to try to just make a profit off of it. Understanding that I put, years and years of time and effort into it. But again, like if nothing happens, I still have a patent. I can say I, went through the process. So it's definitely still a learning experience if no additional money comes from it. So again, I'm always positive about, everything. So.
Yeah, I love that about you, Anthony, because, it's, some people might not be so positive, but quite frankly, I think, look, I have a sneaking feeling that money will come your way, or something will develop from this, because it's at the end of the day, it's just a question of getting the word out. Really, it's just getting out to people that might say, "Wow, we had no idea this product existed." And I think that's the big challenge. And one of the things you may want to consider doing at some point, Anthony, is one way I like to try to get lots of exposure for things that I'm involved with. And right now, as you know, it's the podcast. Yeah. But I do a lot of marketing for this stuff on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Of all things. And I think, Anthony, if you wrote an article on LinkedIn where you said, you talk about, for example, hey, athletes, have you ever run into a problem where you've either spiked yourself, or your spikes get worn down, or you change out of your spikes into your shoes, but then your feet get all muddy, or whatever, list like several of the things that are the problems that you're solving with track slides. And then say, I went through this amazing process at University of Iowa where I was able to do go through an entrepreneurial competition, lots of pitches and so forth. I even had a chance to meet with Daymond John, and we ran with this, and we created this new product called Track Slides.
Right.
And I'd love to tell you more. Please feel free to reach out and connect with me here on LinkedIn, or if you're tied in with any sort of shoe or apparel company or anything in the athletic space, would love to talk to you. Reach me on my details below. And then what you do is you start sharing it with different groups,
right.
Join certain groups on LinkedIn, like, athletic apparel or football related or track related.
Sure.
Just start sharing the story, and I'm telling you, people will reach out.
Okay.
I would almost, like, when you're done recording this podcast and maybe after work, go home and start working on that, and think about it from the reader's perspective. Think about, well, what is it that the reader's going to come from, who's going to read this and say, like, oh my gosh, we got to talk to this guy. This product would be great.
Sure.
Look at it from their perspective, not yours. And then you're going to find that, I think you'll find that there'll be some definite interest coming your way. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, that sounds great.
Cool. Now, you also did work on another project. Tell me about puzzle greetings.
Yeah, so puzzle greetings essentially was created because it was a new, more exciting way to connect with family and friends. Mm-hmm. And I was 13 hours away from home, so I didn't want to continue to send just the ordinary greeting card back home, right? And so the way that puzzle greetings work is you go to the website, you order, to your mom, sister, whomever it is, they receive a package and they piece the puzzles together to see what the message is. And so it's just a fun way to kind of just be interactive. It's something tangible that they can touch and read and, put on their desk or whatever it is. And so I ran that for about 4 to 6 months by myself, and then decided to bring on some partners just because I want to kind of scale up. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. But again, very good experience for myself, a really good learning experience. So now I'm at the point now, it's like, do I want to continue to move forward with that? Do I want to kind of put that at the back burner and move on to the next venture or what have you? So.
Well, look, and we all know as entrepreneurs that there's certain levels of risk when you kickstart something where it may seem like a great idea, but sometimes the execution is a little challenging, especially when you're sort of just getting going. But what I like about, I love the fact that you've got clearly a very, we'll say, fertile mind. You've got a strong imagination, and you really have a pretty keen sense on how to address potential needs out there. And that's, especially with track slides. I mean, that could be an enormous need that people right now don't necessarily know exists. So I'm really looking forward to that launching. So what are you doing these days? Like, I mean, right now I've got you in a conference at your work, I think, a conference room. What are you doing these days? Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I'm working at Oracle, which is a technology company based in Austin. Headquarters is in San Francisco, but there's a sales hub here in Austin. So I'm doing that full time. Then also on the side, brainstorming. Like, I'm trying to come up with the next idea, right? And so I've been, talking with some friends, talking with some, ex-athletes and some former athletes that are in the NFL and in the NBA. Just trying to pick their brains on, the next venture that I'll probably get to here pretty soon. So
that's awesome. So look, I'd love to hear you tell, how old are you right now? You're 24. Right. If you were to give advice, let's say, Iowa brought you back to speak to their current athletes,
sure.
Student athletes, or even just any entrepreneurs there. Give me, a couple of tips. Like, you went through so much to get a lot of these things going.
Yeah.
What kind of advice can you give somebody that's just starting their journey on this?
Yeah, I would definitely say you want to be able to meet as many people as you can, right? You never know. You may be able to help them. They may be able to help you. So I think networking is one of the things that I've gotten really good at over the years. And I think that's very important to be able to network, let people know who you are, what you're interested in, because as an athlete, our time is filled with academics and athletics. So it can be hard to get out of that. But I think you have to kind of force yourself to do so if you want to set yourself up for the future. Because again, you may meet someone that could offer you a job. You may meet someone that could connect you with another person. So I think that's the main thing.
Okay.
And then secondly is trying to make yourself more marketable, right? Because I think being an athlete is great, right? You set yourself apart from, the average student or what have you, but to make yourself even more marketable is to do something else, right? Whether it's community service, get involved in different projects, entrepreneurship, whatever it is, just to continue to add to your resume because you want to make yourself as marketable as possible. And then the third thing is making sure that you can communicate, right? Making sure you can speak, you can, talk in front of people, you can present well, etc. I think those are probably the top three things that I would recommend when talking to current or former athletes.
Well, look, and that's amazing advice. And, it's interesting that I find that most athletes don't necessarily recognize a lot of the skills that they've developed that are off the field, that are,
Right.
You're capable of using after the game or, so forth. Like you just finished saying, what's so critical is being able to communicate, being able to speak in front of large audiences or even a small audience, but you're delivering a pitch of some sort, right?
Sure.
And what's interesting is that athletes sometimes forget that they've developed a very strong comfort level performing in front of people, right? I mean, they're used to playing the big stadium, that kind of thing. But also sometimes there's media appearances after a game, before the game, and so forth. And there's a comfort level that they develop that they don't realize that non-athletes are scared to death of the camera or being in front of a stage, right? Or most of them, right? So that's a biggie. That's really good because that's something that athletes definitely have an advantage of over non-athletes. And that's, whether it's giving them the ability to be in a marketing job or a sales position, business development, or any media facing role. These are all big things. So that's a great piece of advice. Yeah. And I also love the idea. Look, obviously it's what I do for a living is to really talk a lot about networking and how critical it is to continue to try to expand your network with people. And it doesn't mean accepting every friend invite thing or every you don't want to connect with everybody, right? But right. What's brilliant about something, especially, and I know I'm sort of focusing a little bit on LinkedIn, but what's brilliant about a platform like that is that you can pick and choose and select who you want to connect with. You can reach out to specific people and send a personalized invitation that says, hey, I see that you also played football in college, and now that you're involved in the technology space, I thought it'd be great for us to connect here on LinkedIn and maybe have a conversation next few days. Let's connect, regards, Anthony. And you'll be amazed if you send out, 10, 15, 20 of those, 100 of them, whatever it is, you'll expand your network dramatically. And that's a great way to do it. Great advice, Anthony. I love it. I mean, you should go on tour with the Advice-orama speech there. I mean, that's good stuff. You know your thing.
Exactly.
You're like, wait, no, Mark, I don't want to go on tour. Anyway, hopefully they're not listening to you right now at Oracle. But what or maybe they are. Are there no, microphones up there anyway? Don't look. They're watching you. Anyway, I'm kidding. But what do you think? I mean, look, you're only 24, but what would you love to do over the next 5 years, 10 years? I mean, how would you like to, what would be like the ideal scenario for you, do you think?
Yeah. So I think the next 5 years, my goal is to continue to grow as a professional, right? Whether it's in sales or negotiating or management, right? I want to just continue to grow as a professional. Eventually I want to get into a management role because I do think it's important to have a good manager, right? And so I've had so many different mentors impact my life. I would love to just kind of give that back and be a manager and kind of bring people up in the corporate world. But 10 years from now, probably, running my own company of some sort, continuously innovating, coming up with new ideas, even while still working, maybe just doing that on the side. We'll just see in 10 years where I end up.
I know. Well, I mean, that's what's exciting is that, a lot of times we don't necessarily know or see where things are going to go. I mean, I got into this podcast thinking, gee, it'll be really cool to have millions of listeners and lots of advertising revenue and all. And it hasn't been that necessarily, but what it's been is, and I never saw it really coming when I started this podcast, I've made great relationships with my guests. Like I've really gotten to, be able to work with them and advise them. And they gave me, some great stuff too. And it's been a great sort of a symbiotic kind of relationship with everybody. And I never really anticipated that. So, what's interesting is that, today you don't necessarily know what's going to happen in 10 years, but honestly, you don't know what might happen next month.
Right.
Especially if you continue to add to your network, you just never know when you're going to run across somebody that says, you know what, Anthony, you know what, tell Larry Ellison you got to go somewhere else. He's got his catamaran, the sailboat anyway. But or is it the yacht? I don't know which one it is.
One of them.
But is there a lot of yachting that goes on in Austin?
Not really. And there's like a bunch of barges, like people, like a party boat kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But that's all I know.
But does Larry own a barge, or we don't know about that?
Don't think he does down here.
We'll see in People magazine, Larry Ellison's out seen barging. Anyway, or he's like trying to take out the barges with his yacht. All right. Anyway, I'll stop talking. So look, what I love, and the big reason why I really wanted to have you on my podcast, Anthony, is that you're a fantastic example of someone who, has been a student athlete and you excelled at your sport, but you were also able to do so much more while you were in school. You accomplished, so much with the entrepreneurial stuff, your academics, and apparently you also had a social life, which is great. And really, it's a sort of a model. And I like what you talked about earlier about having a schedule and really being diligent with it and sticking to it and not being like kind of winging it. Because when you start winging it, then things start falling apart, right? And so I'm jumping into the next segment now. It's called Hit Your Mark. And I'm just going to throw a bunch of quick questions at you. Super easy. You'll be able to handle it, maybe.
Cool.
So aside from me, who would you say has been your most important mentor? I'm joking about that, by the way. But
Rob Rennick was my first mentor. He's out in Dallas. I met him. I want to say my sophomore or junior year of high school. Just is giving me tremendous advice. We keep in contact, and it's 8, 9, 10 years later, we still talk on a weekly basis. So,
got it. And do you have a favorite? Like, if I told you could meet a certain athlete, like who would you love to meet and hang out with and have a drink with, that sort of thing?
Probably LeBron. I think LeBron has done obviously a lot on the court, but he does a lot in the community, on the entrepreneurial side as well. So I think that'd be a person I would love to just kind of pick his brain a little bit and see what he thought about the next idea or previous ideas, et cetera. So. Well,
if anybody should be one of the sharks on Shark Tank, I think he'd be a great one, right?
Yeah, he would. Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. And it's funny. I was just on a call earlier today with a guy who's out on the West Coast, and we were talking about LeBron and how LeBron is such a great role model for all athletes because he's really fully prepared himself for life after the game and when he leaves the court, right? Yeah. And I've seen that so many athletes don't do that. They either party a lot or whatever it is, but then they're also playing their game. And they also think, well, gee, retirement's many years down the road. Why should I even worry about that? And then either they suffer an injury or maybe their skill set diminishes and they're out of the game. And what happens after that? So, I think he's a great, yes, LeBron's worth $1 kajillion and it's a lot easier when you've got a whole lot of people doing stuff for you and everything. Right. But I think that, and look, what you're doing is absolutely great. You've got a career, but you're also setting yourself up for great success down the road. And I really respect that. So awesome. And if you had a boat, what would you call it?
If I had a boat, what would I call it? That is a good question. If I had a boat, what would I call it? The boat. Emphasis on the.
I always, people are like, wait, why would I have a boat? Why would I have a boat? But anyway, and it's funny because it's almost like, I see a lot of people with license plates that they get them, personalized and so on. Yeah. And, a long time ago I had one, but then, maybe it wasn't so funny after a while. I don't know. But, and by the way, don't ask me what I would call my boat because I have no clue. The SS Minnow was already taken, I guess. Anyway, look, I think what's really important is, really thinking about how you want to sort of be seen out there. And I don't want to say like, what sort of legacy you want, because you're not there yet. But more importantly, when people get to know Anthony, I mean, what is it that you want people to think about you?
I definitely want people to know that obviously I performed well on the field, but I took time to actually perform well off of the field, right? So I was very versatile in what I did at the university, very well spoken, and just an overall good person. I think that's one of the main things that I tried to do, a person of good character, integrity, and things of that nature. So I think that would be some of the things that I would want people to think of me.
And you're a damn good athlete too, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Anyway, well, listen, I really appreciate you being on today. It's been a blast. I'm really impressed by everything you've accomplished so far. And I'm not just saying this to be like the suck up guy or something, but I think you're really on a great track. And, I've seen and spoken to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And, you really, I like how you really seem to have really laid out in your mind how you're going to be doing things. And that's look, it says a lot to the education you've had, to your family and those that have surrounded you and how they brought you up. And the future is your what? Oyster, your ocean, your something. I forgot what it was. What is it anyway? Your future is your what?
The future is yours. That's all I know.
All right, okay, whatever. Anyway, the future is yours. Anyway, but thanks again, Anthony. And listen, all the best to your continued success.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Make Your Mark podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you find ways to make your mark, to succeed in life, and to jump past your competition. Be sure to leave me a review on iTunes and Stitcher, and subscribe to be the first to hear new episodes. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com, and I'll get back to you right away. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.